It's expected for tomorrow night's first debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I will speak with RNC Chairman Reince Priebus coming up and the Republican candidate's son, Eric Trump, coming up about what they expect during the big square-off Monday night. I'll also ask the RNC chair about the surprising about-face from Texas Senator Ted Cruz now endorsing Donald Trump. How big of a deal is that? Is it because Mr. Priebus threatened to withhold RNC support from future presidential candidates who do not get in line behind the current nominee? And peaceful protests overnight after Charlotte police released their video of the fatal shooting of Keith Lamont Scott. I'll talk with two police chiefs who have recently dealt with major crisis in the cities. What needs to be done now as we look ahead this morning on Sunday Morning Futures. Just one day to go before the big presidential debate, the first presidential debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Workers inside the debate hall at Hofstra University on Long Island are busy right now setting up the stage. Mrs. Clinton reportedly putting in long hours with top advisors, brushing up on her deep knowledge of policy, while Mr. Trump is said to be planning to rely largely on instinct. He said he will relax and be himself. He's apparently watching video, though, of Mrs. Clinton's best and worst debate moments, looking for any vulnerabilities. So what can we expect tomorrow night? We want to bring in Reince Priebus right now. He's the chairman of the Republican National Committee. Reince, it's great to see you.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Chairman. Let's begin right there. What are you expecting in terms of what we're going to hear from these two candidates tomorrow night?
Well, I think the expectations on Hillary are very, very high. I mean, she's been doing this for 30 years. I think people expect her to know every little detail, and she has to perform I think in a way that is of the highest of expectations. I think in the case of Donald Trump, look, he's the outsider. He's a person who's never run before, let alone be in a presidential debate, but he's going to be ready. And I think one of the things that Donald Trump has going for him is he's got very good instincts. We've seen that. Look, we went through an incredible year in our primary, and I think unlike anything anyone's been through, lots of drama, and 12 debates. And at every one of these debates, as everyone in the pundits said, oh, this is the day that maybe Donald Trump isn't going to be. And every time he won that debate based on the polling that was done afterwards. So he's got good instincts. I think he's obviously a good counterpuncher. I think he speaks a language that people out there can understand, and so I think he's going to have a good night.
Some people feel like, look, I want to shake up, I want change. I want to shake up what has been in place for 30 years, but it's a risk.
Right.
Voting for someone who I know has never been in politics, who I know speaks his mind. Do you want to go with the security of, well, this has been in place, even though there's corruption and we're questioning what will take place in the next 4 to 8 years, or do you want to bet on Trump and take that risk?
Well, anytime you have a change candidate, you said it exactly right. Anytime you have a change candidate, it's always change versus risk. In other words, how much risk am I going to take in order to get the change? And the electorate is like a river that flows. And if your candidate's flowing with the river, it's a lot easier to win. And Donald Trump's flowing with that river. People want the change. The other side wanted the change, too. That's why Bernie Sanders almost won, but they got stuck with Hillary. So now you have the status quo on one side, you have the change candidate on our side, which we're feeling good about, and the electorate that wants to move that direction. But limiting risk, discipline on messaging, those are the things that Donald Trump's been doing, and he's been doing it very, very well. A lot of people had texted me last night. They thought last night's speech was the best speech he'd ever given on the trail so far. But it's the message discipline that the electorate's looking for, and I think he carries that into tomorrow night. I see good things happening for us.
You look at Hillary Clinton's website, and it's literally A to Z. It starts with Alzheimer's. There's so much in there. You look at Donald Trump's website, and it's a 4-point plan in the economy. Lower taxes, cut back regulations, tap into energy, and redo trade deals that aren't working for America. Make America great again. It's very specific, very short. So do you want to see all of that specifics that Hillary is bringing, or do you want to see a broad vision for the country that people just say, okay, you know what, this person could be my president?
Well, and Donald Trump's plan is also very smart because it's going to the heart of the issues that the American people are concerned about: jobs, foreign policy, security, sovereignty. These are the things that everyone is talking about. The problem with Hillary Clinton is, she's got, as you pointed out, she has all of these ideas, all these incredible things she's going to do in foreign policy and abroad. One of the things that Donald Trump has said so often, which is very true, is, look, I appreciate, Hillary, you have all of these ideas and all of these things you want to do in regard to foreign policy, but of all the people out there in the world that had the opportunity to make these changes, it was you.
Right.
No one out there watching us right now, Maria, had the opportunity that she had. And did she do it? No, she failed, and it was a disaster. So while it's great to have all these ideas now, what happened when you had the chance?
And then each side is trying to get in the other's head. Obviously, Hillary's camp invites Mark Cuban to sit right in the front row, facing Donald Trump right there. Are there rules about what we're going to see on screen from the debate commission?
Well, usually when these debates are put on, there are some conversations about what's going to be in the screenshot and what's not. I would hope and expect that the Presidential Debate Commission, the Commission on Presidential Debates, would look at what the screenshot is and make some determinations as far as who should be there, who shouldn't, or the campaign should probably be involved in that process. I don't know where that's going, but that's typically something that does happen before the debate.
So it's probably not going to be allowed to have somebody there taunting.
I would hope not. I mean, I would think it would be. I don't think we want to have a fiasco here, and I don't think there will be, quite frankly. And I think, so people understand, the Trump campaign has not invited Jennifer Flowers to be at the debate, and obviously this Mark Cuban play, I think, was over the top by the Hillary Clinton campaign. That wasn't just by accident. And look, you know, you hit Donald Trump, and sometimes he counterpunches, even if it's for a laugh. But it's important that they understand that this is something that I don't think is acceptable to taunt and to do those sorts of things.
At this point, you've got party unity, it looks like. I mean, Ted Cruz endorsing Donald Trump is a big deal. Is that because you were very clear with people and you said, look, you're not going to get the money, you're not going to get the Republican National Committee support if you do not get behind the nominee? You did sign a pledge, after all.
Well, I appreciate Senator Cruz coming on board, and I also appreciate the fact that he didn't just say, I'm supporting Donald Trump. He actually laid out a really smart, intelligent, reason for, 6 reasons why he was supporting Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, mainly, for one thing, for all the Republicans out there and independents, the Supreme Court. We're not just talking about a 4-year presidency. We're talking about 40 years of laws that can go by the wayside if we don't get control of the Supreme Court. We could, we have Scalia's appointment, but we also have potentially 2 or 3 others that might pop up. And it wasn't a matter of threats at all. I mean, I'm not in the threatening and making threats business, but I do think it's important for candidates that compete in a process. And we have, in some cases, 1, 2, or 3 different pledges with particular candidates. Some signed some signed 1, 2, 3, some signed them all. I just think if you say you're going to want to run under the Republican flag and you say you're going to support the Republican nominee, I think you should just honor that commitment. Otherwise, then don't run. I mean, you don't have to run for president. I mean, we don't need 16 people running.
Well, that's why I was
But if you
impressed.
want to be one of the 16, then just live up to your word. That's all. And he did. And for that, I'm very, very appreciative of what Ted Cruz did. Plus, I'd also commend their campaign because they've been very helpful to our party in helping us with data. We have data exchange agreements, and Cruz's campaign has been very, very good about that. And in fact, so has Jeb Bush's campaign, actually. They've been very good with exchanging data with the Republican Party.
I like the fact that Ted Cruz was a man of his word, I have to say. And then afterwards, he also said, and by the way, I don't want Hillary Clinton as the president. We'll see what conservatives and Republicans have to say to those people who did not get on board if Hillary Clinton becomes president. They're going to be mad at those people.
Well, there's still time, and I'm hoping they'll come on board.
All right, we will leave it there. Ryan's great to see you.
Thank you.
An exciting night tomorrow night. We'll be watching Ryan's Priebus joining us there. And be sure to tune in to my morning show on the Fox Business Network. We've got a great couple of days coming up for important insight and analysis of tomorrow's historic presidential debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. We kick it off at 6 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning on the Fox Business Network, Mornings with Maria. Donald Trump gears up for a pivotal moment in the campaign as the countdown rolls on to tomorrow night's primetime debate. Will he be ready for anything Hillary Clinton throws his way? I'm talking with Eric Trump coming up, his son, about that and a lot more. Follow me on Twitter. Let us know what you'd like to hear from Chairman Michael McCall. He's coming up as well, at Maria Bartiromo, at Sunday Futures. Stay with us as we look ahead this morning on Sunday Morning Futures. Welcome Welcome back. It has now been just over a week since explosions rocked New York City and New Jersey, but investigators have been unable to question the suspect yet, Ahmad Khan Rahami. It is still being said that he is unconscious at a hospital in New Jersey as new questions arise about his travels abroad and how he became radicalized. Now, some of those questions may be answered because we are learning that his wife has returned to the United States from the United Arab Emirates, and she is now cooperating with law enforcement. Republican Congressman Michael McCall is with us from Texas. He is the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee. Congressman, it's good to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks for having me.
What can you tell us about the wife of Rahami at this point and what we're learning in terms of his motivations?
Well, we know he married her in Pakistan. She went to UAE. She came back into the United States. My understanding from law enforcement officials is that she is cooperating with them, so it's a very positive sign. We are looking into these travels overseas. He had multiple trips to Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkey, in one instance in Quetta, outside of in Pakistan, which is sort of a Taliban stronghold, had attended a mosque for several months, and it's a very radicalized mosque. And so we want to know what he was doing over there. Most of the people around him when he came back said that he changed after that event and after that trip to Pakistan.
And we know that those trips can be obviously a radicalization, and maybe that's why he changed. What do we need to do on in the homeland, Congressman, in terms of ensuring that these folks don't keep going back, coming back, and then have these quiet cells that who knows what danger they can create?
Well, I think it goes through the vetting process. We know he had a secondary screening by CBP within the Department of Homeland Security. That information was shared with the FBI. You know, the FBI did open an investigation into Mr. Rahami. And I think one of the questions that I have is why, when the father was interviewed and said his son was a terrorist, why wasn't the subject of the investigation, Mr. Rahami, interviewed? Perhaps that would have revealed more information that possibly could have led us to disrupt this terrorist plot.
Right, especially since the father said, I think my son is a terrorist. I mean, you know, it's incredible that wasn't taken more seriously. Let me switch gears to what has happened this weekend. And obviously there was a Washington mall shooter. He's been caught. The suspect is 20 years old, Turkish Muslim, Arkan Sitin. He was arrested for murder of the 5 people that he killed in the mall in Washington State. What can you tell us about him? Is this related to Islamic terrorism?
Well, I think there's a good chance it could be. I know right now law enforcement, FBI is playing it safe, saying there are no links to terrorism. That's true, at least from the evidence so far. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out more details about this individual as well as we did Mr. Rahami. Remember, I held up this journal of Mr. Rahami, the blood-stained journal with the bullet hole, where he talks about these ISIS spokesmen, Mr. Sheikh Adnani, basically saying, do not come to Syria anymore, attack at home, attack where you are. In fact, he says, attack the unbeliever in your backyard. And
incredible.
So, Maria, what I'm worried about is we're going to see more and more of these sort of small-scale attacks, but very lethal, happening more and more in the United States.
Yeah. Congressman, real quick, let me switch gears. Obviously, Ted Cruz is now endorsing Donald Trump. You were critical of those who are not getting behind the nominee at this point because they signed a pledge. Do you feel better about the fact that now Ted Cruz is supporting Donald Trump? He's come around?
Well, you know, I am. I've said all along that all Republicans should not stand on the sidelines, but rather unify as a party behind the nominee. Otherwise, I believe they're being complicit with Hillary Clinton becoming the next president, you know, of the United States. I stood up very strongly at our convention in Cleveland, very strong support of the nominee, because I think that's the right thing to do. And I believe it's the right thing to do for the country. If you look at the differences between Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Trump, and particularly on national security issues, where I think she is very vulnerable. She created and destabilized the Middle East and Northern Africa, which has led to the formation not only of ISIS, but all these terror groups we're seeing spring up in that area that can provide external operations into the homeland.
Well, you have to believe that Republicans are going to be upset with those people that did not follow through on their word and back the Republican nominee, Donald Trump, ahead of what is going to be an incredible night tomorrow night. Congressman, we will see you soon. We so appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maria.
Congressman Michael McCaul joining us. Nearly a third of the country expected to watch the first presidential debate tomorrow night. What does Eric Trump want to see from his father? Eric Trump will join me next as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures. Stay with us. More than 100 million people are expected to watch the debate, the first presidential debate, Monday night. Eric Trump is the Executive Vice President of Development and Acquisitions for the Trump Organization and, of course, Donald Trump's son. Eric, great to see you.
It's great to be here, Maria.
So what do you feel when you hear those numbers? 100 million Americans tuned into the debate tomorrow night.
It's amazing and special. I think it's actually a testament in many ways to my father and what he's created. I mean, he's not the typical politician. He's not the scripted politician. He started an incredible movement in this country. I mean, he's talking to working class Americans who have totally been left behind by career politicians, and that's exactly what Hillary is.
And it's a very simple, straightforward message. We need to control the borders so that we know who's coming in and out, so that we can make sure the country is safe. We need to create jobs. That message he has been really hammering home these last couple of weeks. Is that how he's preparing? What is he doing to prepare for the big debate?
Yeah, it's really two words: America first. You know, very, very, very simple. And that hasn't happened in so long. We're disrespected all over the world. The president flies into China last week. They don't even bring a staircase up to Air Force One. I mean, he literally comes out of the service entrance of the plane. We need to bring back respect to this country. We need to bring back jobs to this country. We have to stop losing our manufacturing overseas. We have to decrease our national deficit. We have to take care of our educational system, which is a mess. I mean, we're ranked 30th in the world in terms of education in the United States. We need to start putting America first again, and that's his message, and it's very, very simple.
So what will be success at this debate from your standpoint? What do you want to feel when you're walking out of that debate to feel, okay, I think my team won?
Yeah. Being himself. I mean, my father being himself. You look at Hillary. I mean, Hillary's been a politician longer than I've been alive. It's kind of hard to believe. She's been a politician, what, 36 years? I mean, so she just beats me out by a little bit. I mean, that's all she's done her entire life. My father comes in. He's built an amazing organization. He's built an incredible company. He's employed tens and tens of thousands of people. He's a brilliant guy. He doesn't need the job. I mean, the reason he's in here is to try and work out these messes that these politicians have created over the last 30 years. And you see all the problems. You see the things that are happening in this country right now that are unthinkable, whether it be bombs going off downtown New York and in New Jersey, and people getting stabbed in malls in Minnesota, you know, ISIS and how they're on the rise. You see the Middle East, which is a complete hornet's nest. It's a total mess. Iraq, Syria, Libya. I mean, all these countries, we've spent trillions of dollars and we're worse off because of it. We've lost thousands and thousands of lives. I mean, my father has to be the guy he is, which is authentic and true. He's an amazing person, and he's doing this for the right reason, and that's what you're going to see on Monday.
Well, we saw him react to the racial unrest that we saw and the protesting that we saw this past week, and he was very measured. Tell us what went into that. Did you talk to him after what took place in North Carolina and in Tulsa? When he saw the Tulsa video, he knew what it looked like.
What's worse than this? I mean, we need unity back in this country.
Can he bring everybody together?
I think so. I mean, right now you have this divide that's unbelievable. You have our law enforcement, which are amazing people. You also have a community that totally feels left behind, and quite frankly, that community in so many regards has been left behind. I mean, you look at so many inner cities in this country, you have 60% unemployment in African-American youth throughout the United States. I mean, 60%.
Yeah. And he's talking about it through this four-step plan to, number one, lower taxes, number two, roll back regulations, number three, tap into energy, and number four, redo trade deals that are not advantageous to America.
Well, think of what that accomplishes, right? I mean, think about what bringing jobs to America accomplishes, putting people to work, really making them feel great value, making them aspire to do something fantastic, giving them hope and opportunity. I mean, that's an amazingly powerful tool. Think about if we get rid of all the waste and inefficiency in government, right? The $20 trillion. We just gave $150 billion to Iran, a country that hates us. Think about if we could use that $150 billion and invest that in our schools and our inner cities and inner city communities and everything else. I mean, think about the opportunity that would create.
Meanwhile, Hillary's camp invited Mark Cuban to the debate, and Mark Cuban was tweeting last week saying, look, I have a front row seat. Maybe he's trying to get into your father's head. He came on the Fox Business Network, and he basically said, I have my Trump hedge in. If Trump wins the election, the stock market is going to tank. Is he going to get in your father's head by sitting there front and center watching your father?
And I think Mark Cuban's confused, quite frankly. I mean, at first, a couple months ago, he was saying my father was the greatest thing that's ever happened to politics. We were using his stadiums, and he's over here, then he's back. Listen, I don't know what to make of him, and who knows? It's not going to affect my father at all. In fact, my father is going to have a lot of working class Americans at the debate, and those are the people who have been left behind by this country, right, and by the politicians.
Well, I have to believe that you each got the same amount of seats, right, in the front row. So you are going to have people in the front row. I mean, I know it is all about the smart, fundamental things, but there is something.
We'll have people in the front row,
okay.
And I'll be one of them, and so will Ivanka, and so will Don, and I didn't miss a single debate. I'm so proud to be there by my father's side, and believe me, we'll be at every one of these, and we'll be cheering him on as a family and doing great.
What's most important, do you think, in terms of these swing states? I mean, you look at Colorado, you look at Ohio, you look at even Pennsylvania getting real tight. Does any one of these strike you as more important than the other, the fact that he's been able to turn some of these swing states?
It's incredible. I spent the last 3 days in Pennsylvania. I was all over the state, everywhere from Pittsburgh on the west to, all day Philly yesterday with my father, and the amount of love is incredible. You couldn't drive 100 yards without seeing another huge Trump sign in the front yard. As we were leaving last night, we drove past a fire department. Every single engine was outside of the fire department, their horns blaring, their sirens going, and the whole fire department was clapping. I mean, this is right outside Philadelphia. Wow. I mean, the love is tremendous. And then you see states like Colorado, right? When was the last time Colorado went Republican? Right, and we're winning. I mean, so many polls have us either tied or ahead in a state that's never been really won by a Republican. I mean, his message is resonating. Look at New Mexico, look at Nevada. I mean, so many of these states. I mean, he's really,
so they're all important.
He's really rewritten the electoral map, and it's really amazing.
What about the black vote? I saw him at that church in Detroit, where the pastor interrupted him, said, "Look, Mr. Trump, we didn't invite you here to give a political speech." He handled that very well. What is he doing? Does he need to do more to really get the African American community in his corner?
I think one of the great takeaways, honestly, the great takeaways of this campaign and of the Republican Party this election cycle is what he's been doing with the African American communities. He's been in so many of the African American communities. He's been talking to those communities. Those communities have been so left behind by our government. I mentioned 60% African American youth that are unemployed in these communities. You look at, some of the poverty rates in these communities. You look at what's happened to food stamps, right? During Obama administration, they've gone up tremendously. These communities have been left behind, and quite frankly, Democrats have always taken their vote totally for granted. And it's so nice to see him going in and saying, listen, I'm going to bring back jobs. I'm going to bring you opportunity. I'm going to come back and I'm going to fix your educational system. I'm going to give your children school choice. I'm going to fix the problem, and you will not be ignored because you are an important part of society that has totally been left behind.
All right, I like the idea that he sent notes to his followers and notes to his supporters saying, what do you want me to do at the debate? Should I call her Crooked Hillary?
Yeah.
Is he listening to what he's hearing from his supporters? Is he going to call her Crooked Hillary on the debate stage?
Yeah, he's absolutely listening, and he does that very well. And, so many of this, you can't script these things. You kind of have to go out there and feel the moment. And I think that's the problem with a lot of politicians. They try and script each minute of this. Well, in minute one, I'm going to do this. In minute two, who knows what she's going to do? Who knows what she's going to say about him?
Is it more important when he's on that debate stage to talk about where his vision is for the country, or will it be more important to remind folks of things like you just said about his opponent? Talk about where Hillary Clinton's failures were.
I think it's both.
Both.
I think it's a message of America first. We have to start winning again. I mean, it's the winning message. It's jobs, jobs, jobs. It's our economy. It's stop the waste, stop the nonsense, stop the abuse, stop other countries from ripping us off. Take care of the people who are suffering in our own country before you take care of those outside of our borders. I mean, America has to come first for our politicians, and that's not how it's been run. And I think also you do have to point to a pretty terrible track record that has created so many of the problems that we see every day in our everyday lives.
All right, we will leave it there. We will be watching.
Thank you, Maria.
Monday night, the debate stage. Eric, thank you.
Great being with you.
Eric Trump joining us there. Follow me on Twitter. Let us know what you'd like to hear at Maria Bartiromo, at Sunday Futures. Stay with us as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures. owing to intense public pressure, police in Charlotte, North Carolina, releasing the police body and dash cam footage of Tuesday's fatal shooting of Keith Scott. I must warn you, these videos are graphic, so step away if you don't want to look at this. The video showing officers surrounding Scott, who has his hands at his side before shots are fired and he falls to the ground. Police also releasing their description of the events and pictures from the scene showing a handgun, ankle holster, and marijuana blunt. Scott's wife insisting he did not have a gun. He had a book in his hand. It wasn't a gun. Let's bring in two veterans of law enforcement right now. Jared Berguan, Chief of Police for San Bernardino, California, and John Mina, Police Chief for Orlando, Florida. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Chief Berguan, let me kick this off with you. Your reaction to what has taken place, and I guess characterize for us right now how you see things.
You know, I think it's an interesting time in law enforcement. We are dealing with this new dynamic of everything that we do is potentially captured on video. And that, of course, is kind of a scary time for cops. We say a lot that there's not a lot that's very pretty about the work that we do. And it's not pretty to have to go into communities and sometimes enforce the law and sometimes do the things that we ask very young men and women in some cases to do. And contrast it to previous generations, suddenly they're doing everything live on TV and being scrutinized for their every action. Scary place to be.
So, Chief Mina, is that dictating behavior in some regard? The fact that we all have our cameras and we're watching, is that changing behaviors in any way? How would you characterize the status of police in America today?
I do think it's changing behaviors. And remember, 40 police officers this year have been killed by gunfire, and our police officers have to make split-second decisions. These incidents happen in the blink of an eye. And remember, the officer doesn't have the luxury of going back and looking at the videotape and scrutinizing frame by frame. Should I have done this? Should I have done that? You know, the fact of the matter, especially in this case, is people need to comply with the commands of police officers. Police officers all across the United States run into people with guns, either legally owned or illegally owned, and those interactions are peacefully resolved because the people complied with the commands of police officers.
I mean, and then there are lasting effects as well. Chief Berguan, tell us about San Bernardino. I mean, the public watching what took place in San Bernardino and then knowing that this was someone inspired by Islamic terrorism, that also dictates how the public looks at things.
Yeah, I think so. So our experience here in San Bernardino is something that unfortunately is becoming somewhat commonplace across the country. Statistically still rare when you look at how large our country is and all the activity going on, but nonetheless we see incident after incident after incident of these Islamic-inspired terrorists, people that are acting out against unarmed citizens for their own ideological beliefs. It is our new reality. It is something that we have to deal with. From the law enforcement standpoint, what makes it a little frightening is that, as Director Comey said, we're not just looking for a needle in a haystack, we're looking for the needle within the needle. And that's a very tough place to be.
Well, I mean, and then there's the situation in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Chief Mina. You know, when you look at what transpired there and the officer being served with manslaughter charges, are there things that we need to be doing in terms of training for police?
Well, certainly training is a big factor, but remember, and I hate to comment on that case because that officer didn't have the luxury of looking back at the videotape, but training is very important for our officers, and I think that's something that many police departments have realized for years and years and years, and they are doing the training. But remember, these incidents happen in a split second.
Okay, so what do you want to hear from the leadership of the country, both of you? I mean, there has been a lot of conversation this year that the president and the administration does not give enough support to police forces around the country. Is that what you're feeling, and does that also play into this, that they're afraid to carry out their jobs?
Well, I think the message should be that our officers have an extremely difficult job. Give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, we're human just like everyone else. We're going to make mistakes, and it's just important to know that those mistakes will be thoroughly investigated. And as you've seen in the cases like Tulsa and other cases around the country, officers are going to be held accountable for their actions, although having some very, very difficult situations they deal with every day.
Final word, Chief Bergwan.
You know, I think that I think our police officers would like to see some more support. Policing is changing dramatically. Policing today is far different than what it was when I started my career 24 years ago, and certainly different from, you know, the old timers when I started, who started 40 years ago. The great thing about this profession is that it continues to evolve, and it will change, it will modify, and ultimately we will deliver service in a way that our communities are willing to accept it. But at the end of the day, we've got to remember that debate has to be a common sense debate, and people are at the end of the day going to get the policing that they want. And everybody needs to be part of that discussion.
And it's a very difficult job. We know that you and your teams are putting yourselves out there every day, and we thank you for that. Chief Bergwan, Chief Mina, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. Let's get a look at what's coming up top of the hour. Media Buzz, checking with Howie Kirst. He is at Hofstra University, getting up. Ready for tomorrow's big debate. Howie, how does it look? Tell us.
It's a massive media center here. This is going to be the Super Bowl of the political campaign, as you know, Maria. Got an all-star lineup. We're going to look at the media expectations game, what Trump and Clinton need to do. You've heard hours and hours of that, how that will affect the debate. Also, the role of the moderators, how much fact-checking can or should they do, how much heat they are going to take in this hyper-partisan atmosphere. Bill Hemmer, Martha McCallum, and a lot of other Fox favorites on Media Buzz coming up.
All right, we will be there at top of the hour. Thank you so much. The debate is what everybody is talking about. It is getting closer and closer tomorrow night. 100 million people watching. We're going to talk with our panel coming up next. What should we expect from Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton? The panel's on deck. Back in a moment on Sunday Morning Futures. Welcome back. More now on our top story. Just one day to go before the first presidential debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. A new poll shows that the nominees are in a virtual dead heat in the race for the White House. What can we expect tomorrow night? And will the debate move the needle on this dead heat situation? Our panel is now Ed Rollins is the former campaign manager for the Reagan-Bush ticket in 1984. He's the chief strategist for a Trump super PAC. Stephen Sigmund is senior vice president of the Global Strategy Group and a Democratic strategist. And Mary Kissel is a member of the Wall Street Journal's editorial board. Good to see everybody. Thank you for joining us. What are you expecting tomorrow night?
Dead even race. Traditionally, the debates don't move numbers. Usually you reinforce your own side. In this case, with potential 100 million people, there's 8% that are undecided. You could move 4, 5, 6 million people in this debate, and that's enough to win this thing.
So we know the expectations, Steve. Yeah. So do they have to break away from those expectations to move the needle in that regard?
Look, I think the expectations game is tough for her, right? I think, look, over the course of, remember, there's going to be 3 debates. So over the course of the 3 debates, I think she will prove to be more ready and prepared to be president than he. But in the first debate, she has to be presidential. She has to be honest and trustworthy. She has to know her facts, but not too much. She has to take him on, but not too much. Oh, and she has to smile more. And all he has to do is not be crazy and be adequately prepared. So that's a tough assignment in the first debate. And I think it can, you know, if he crosses that very low bar, it can move votes, but that's a bar that he's had trouble with in the past.
But there's also an issue about coughing, about perhaps her pneumonia. Do you think that comes up?
No, I doubt it. I mean, look, I think he's taken some unfair shots at the notion of health. This guy has had, you know, his version of health is 2 notes that are like Epstein's mom from Welcome Back, Kotter. So I think if that becomes a debate, I think it's a debate that they'll battle to a tie.
No, I guess what I was saying, Mary, was, is she not well? Because she had pneumonia, but maybe that's off base. Maybe she's been resting and she's ready to go. I mean,
I don't know. There are a lot of unknowns for this debate. Health is one of them. The debate preparation. We're hearing that Trump isn't preparing for this debate. That could sort of be a feint. We don't know the role that the moderator is going to play in this debate. If Lester Holt is going to come across as more of a Candy Crowley interfering in the debate, or a Jim Lehrer that just lets the candidates duke it out themselves. We just don't know. But I think Ed is right. This is a very, very important debate, particularly for Trump, because it's the first time that many Americans will see him for an extended period of time, not just in a 30-second attack ad and not characterizations of him in the print press. So it's going to be fun to watch.
So it's 90 minutes, and you're right. This is the first time that it's that long of a period where we're going to actually have to hear them both talk about their vision for the country.
He has to project strength. You have to look at him at the end of this debate, and she may win the Policy Wonk award at the end of the night. No one cares. But if he projects strength and he basically says, listen, I've spent my entire life being a decision maker. The job of the president is to make 4 or 5 big decisions every single day. The job of the president is to be able to sit down across the table from Putin and others and be tough and be able to negotiate. I can do all those things. She can't. She had a commercial when she ran against Barack Obama about the 3 o'clock in the morning phone call. Who do you want to answer the phone call before the March, Texas? She's got that phone call. She got it in Benghazi, and she didn't answer it and didn't do well. And that's what I would say. I'm the decision maker. She's not. I'm a leader. She's not.
But he does, respectfully, I think he does have more of a challenge than just that, right? I mean, this is a guy who 2/3 of the country think is unqualified for the job that he's trying to get, and that the only living presidents think he's unqualified for that job. So he actually does have to demonstrate some preparedness and having done his homework.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. But in recent polls, Donald Trump is seen as more trustworthy than Hillary Clinton is. And you also have to remember that Trump could be the only candidate that can fight Hillary at her level. Look at what they did when the Clinton campaign said, well, Mark Cuban is going to sit in the front row. So what does Trump do? He rolls out the bimbo eruptions in Jennifer Flowers. He fights at their level. He's very unpredictable. I think the biggest danger for Trump is controlling the inner Trump, which is, staying calm and staying on message. He's a candidate of change, and he's got a big advantage because of that.
This is how he plays golf. He always stays very close to the end. People tell me he's a scratch golfer. He always stays right there, and he wins it in the end. He's a very competitive man. And I think the key thing here is can he project that strength? Can he basically, and to your point about him being, she has the same kind of numbers, and she's been on the stage for 30 years.
Right.
So I think the reality is that this is going to be something where people are going to make their minds up, and it's going to reinforce the base.
She doesn't have the same kind of numbers on being qualified for president. Yes, about trustworthiness and honesty. In fact, she has a challenge where she's got to come across as warm. But I think the inner Trump. I mean, showing the inner Trump by coming up with this Jennifer Flowers thing, which is about as clever and charming as an 11-year-old middle schooler, right, and about as effective with women.
By the way, we're going to take a short break. But by the way, I don't think any of that is going to materialize. Mark Cuban's not going to be in the front row. Jennifer Flowers not going to be. None of it. You heard of it here first. I don't think it's going to be allowed. More in the debate, more from our panel as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures next. Welcome back, and I'm back with the panel. Ed Rollins, Stephen Sigmund, Barry Kissel. Let's talk about the moderator for a second. Lester Holt moderating tomorrow night, where 100 million people will be watching. What do you expect from him, yourself, as a journalist, Barry Kissel?
No, I would hope that he would ask tough questions of both candidates. Lester Holt is getting a lot of pressure from the left not to let Donald Trump, quote-unquote, get away with lies. They want him to, quote-unquote, fact-check Donald Trump. Of course, they're not asking for Hillary Clinton to be fact-checked. Effectively, they want Lester Holt to inject himself into the debate, to become part of the debate. That's not the job of a moderator. The job of a moderator is to ask tough questions and to facilitate the debate.
That's what Candy Crowley did, and she got it wrong.
And she did. And Mitt Romney froze, and I think it's a large part of the reason why he lost that debate and lost the confidence of the American people.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I mean, I think that the moderator's job is to ask tough questions, but there is a job to do on fact-checking both of the candidates. And I think, when the fact-checkers do fact-checking on both of the candidates, a guy who PolitiFact has already found out 85% of what he says is not true, is going to do very badly.
So is it up to Hillary Clinton to say, oh, Donald Trump, you just said this, and I know that's not true?
She should do that as part of a debate.
Donald Trump to say, hey, you just said that, that's a lie.
His job as a single moderator, and his style is totally different. He's not a Chris Wallace. He's not overly aggressive. He basically is going to ask the right questions, keep the debate going. He's like a referee in a fight. He's not the guy that basically judges the fight. And I think to a certain extent, by doing fact-checking, then you're basically taking a side, what have you. Let the people afterwards keep it going, keep the questions to where people are really interested in the show.
But I would also hope that he addresses the questions that most Americans care about, which is the economy and terrorism, particularly after last weekend's bombings in New York, New Jersey, and the stabbings in Minnesota.
Yeah, real quick, what will be success for Donald Trump?
He basically walks off the end of the stage with a tie or a win.
What will be success for Hillary Clinton?
She projects warmth and presidential character and capacity to lead.
Warmth. Okay, Mary, your thoughts?
That Donald Trump controls himself, that he stays on message, and there's nowhere to hide in a 90-minute debate. For Hillary, it's warmth, but that's something that she's simply not. So I think that's going to be.
She
tough
has
for
to
her.
win, though. He doesn't.
She has to win.
The expectations are tougher for her, no question, as always.
The expectations are here because everybody thinks, yeah, you do know everything. And you don't have those because he's never been a politician.
And I think he will win.
You think he will win?
It could be the only debate.
This debate?
Wow.
I think he'll do well in this debate. Over the three, it'll be clear that she will.
Thank you so much, Mary, Steve. Good to see you. That'll do it for Sunday Morning.